Welcome back to Billionaire Success Lessons. Today, we are telling the story of a man who did not become powerful by building rockets, flashy industries that instantly attract attention. He built his fortune in something far more surprising. He built it by understanding emotion, desire, collecting, identity, and the strange human thrill of mystery. This is the story of Wang Ning. And what makes his journey so powerful is not only that he became a billionaire, it is that he did it by turning something many people once dismissed as small, childish, or unimportant into one of the most He did not sell necessity. He sold feeling. He sold surprise. He sold imagination. And somehow, he turned that into a global business. Wang Ning was born in 1987 in China's Henan province. And Bloomberg says his parents sold small goods like CDs, watches, and fishery tools. An early environment that helped shape his instinct for business. Public reporting also ties him to Mart as its founder, chairman, and chief executive. That detail matters more than it may seem. Because before he became the face of it, he grew up around everyday commerce, around real selling, around ordinary products moving through ordinary hands, long before the world talked about designer toys, blind boxes, and labak. Wang Ning was already close to the raw mechanics of trade itself. And that is where the first lesson begins. Grand vision. Sometimes it starts with quiet observation. It starts with noticing what people love, what they buy, what they return for, what makes them smile, what makes them curious, what makes them feel like they are. A lot of people think billion-dollar businesses must begin with some massive invention. But many great companies begin with something much more subtle. They begin with understanding human behavior better than other people do. That seems to be exactly what Wang Ning learned to do. Reuters says Wang founded Mart in 2010, and later reporting describes that early business as a lifestyle retail store in Beijing before it became the collectible empire people know. Today, other public accounts place the first store in one of Beijing's best-known commercial and tech districts. Think about how bold that really was. In the beginning, there was no guarantee that a store like that would become anything extraordinary. There was no certainty that designer toys would become a cultural force, would scale into a public company worth billions. At that stage, it was just a bet. A small business bet. A youth culture bet. A consumer behavior bet. A bet that people did not just want products. They wanted experiences. And that is a much deeper idea than it first appears. Because Wang Ning was not only selling objects, he was learning how anticipation works. He was learning how identity works. He was learning that people do not sometimes they buy according to emotion, belonging, aesthetics, and the thrill of discovery. That insight changed everything. This is one of the most important lessons in his story. The most powerful businesses are often built by people who understand that humans are emotional before they are rational. They do not only ask, what does the customer need? They also ask, what does the customer feel? And when a founder understands both, the business becomes far stronger. Mart did not explode overnight. That part matters, because when people look back at success, they often compress time. They imagine the rise as quick, clean, and inevitable. But almost nothing meaningful is built that way. There were years of testing, years of refining, years of finding the right product, years of learning what the market. And that is where real entrepreneurs separate themselves from dreamers. Dreamers fall in love with their first idea. Builders keep adjusting until the market falls in love with it. Wang Ning kept adjusting. Over time, Mart moved deeper into collectible art, toys, and the blind box format that would eventually define the company. Reuters noted that the business model centered on mystery toy boxes, where buyers did not know exactly which figurine they were getting until they opened it. That sounds simple, but psychologically, it is incredibly powerful. Because mystery is addictive. Mystery makes the transaction emotional. Mystery turns buying into participation. Mystery transforms a product into an event. And that shift is huge. Wang Ning was not simply retailing merchandise. He was designing anticipation. That is why this story is so interesting. He found a way to sell not just plastic figures, but suspense. Not just characters, but attachment. Not just toys, but the feeling that the next box might contain something rare, special, or worth showing the world. A lot of people would have laughed at that concept early on. Some probably did. That is another lesson. The crowd often laughs first at what it later ends. Because outsiders usually judge a business by what it looks like on the surface. Founders have to judge it by what it can become. And Wang Ning could see something most people missed. What looked like a toy business could become an intellectual property business. A retail business, a brand business, a community business, and eventually a global cultural business. That kind of vision is rare. By December 2020, Mart had grown enough to list in Hong Kong. Reuters reported that the IPO valued the company at roughly $7 billion ahead of trading, with Wang Ning's stake making him a billionaire. Now pause there for a moment. That is an extraordinary leap. A business founded in 2010 around lifestyle retail and collectibles became a publicly listed company in a decade. A founder born in the late 1980s became a billionaire through a category many traditional people would never have taken seriously. And that should make every serious builder think. Because it proves that opportunity does not always live where the old world says it should live. It can live in youth culture, in design, in fandom, in collecting, in emotional consumption, in things the serious world is too quick to dismiss. This is one of the deepest truths in Wang Ning's story. If you understand a new generation before the old generation does, you may see a market before everyone else sees it. And that is exactly what founders get paid for. Not for repeating what is already obvious, but for seeing value before it becomes consensus. But even after the IPO, the story was not finished. In some ways, it had only entered a more difficult phase. Because starting a business is hard. Growing a business is harder. But staying relevant after success arrives can be hardest of all. Once you win once, the pressure changes. Now the question is no longer, can you survive? Now the question becomes, can you keep evolving? Can you become global? Can you turn a trend into a system? Can you turn products into enduring intellectual property? That is the challenge many companies fail. They have one hot moment, one hot product, one hot cycle, then the world moves on. Wang Ning appears to have understood that danger very clearly. Mart did not remain just a China story. The company expanded offline, online, and overseas, while leaning harder into its own proprietary IP. Mart's 2024 annual results announcement said, revenue from proprietary products contributed 97.6% of total revenue in 2024, and the company's international business accelerated sharply. That is not a small detail. It means Wang Ning was not satisfied with being just a seller of other people's products. He wanted ownership. He wanted characters. He wanted a universe. He wanted the business to become stronger at the level of identity, not just distribution. That is a much higher level of strategic thinking. A weak business rents attention. A strong business owns affection. And affection is far more valuable. Because if people love your characters, your world, and your emotional universe, they do not just buy once. They return. They collect. They share. They build communities around what you made. That is how a product becomes a culture. And culture is one of the most powerful forms of business strength in the modern world. Mart's 2024 annual results were striking. The company reported RMB 13.04 billion in revenue for 2024 and 3.31 billion RMB in profit for the year, while non-IFRS adjusted net profit reached RMB 3.40 billion. Overseas revenue rose 375.2% year-over-year to more than RMB 5.06 billion. The company ended 2024 with 401 physical stores and 2,300 roboshops in mainland China, plus 120 retail stores and 172 roboshops in Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, and overseas markets. Those numbers tell a story far bigger than toy. They tell the story of scale, of repeat, of operational discipline, of global ambition. This is not just a cute brand anymore. This is not just a trendy youth label anymore. This is a serious retail and IP machine. And that changes how we should think about Wang Ning. He is not simply a lucky founder who caught a wave. He is a builder who figured out how to turn emotional demand into operational structure. That is much harder than people realize, because a lot of people can create hype across years, geographies, and product cycles. That is another crucial lesson in his story. Hype may create attention, but systems create empires. If you have only excitement, you burn bright and disappear. If you build structure behind that excitement, you can turn a moment into a movement. Wang Ning did not just chase what was hot. He built around why it was hot. And that is why the business kept getting stronger. Mart's 2024 results also showed just how much the international story mattered. Revenue from Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan, and overseas markets jumped to over RMB 5.06 billion, with especially strong growth in Southeast Asia, East Asia, North America, and Europe plus Australia. The same filing described newly opened stores in countries, including Vietnam, Indonesia, the Philippines, Italy, and Spain during 2024. That matters because global expansion is where many local success stories break. It is one thing to understand one domestic culture, appeal across borders. That requires taste, speed, operations, brand discipline, and a product language that can travel. Wang Ning seems to have built exactly that kind of business. And when you look at the larger pattern, the story becomes even more meaningful. This is not only the rise of a toy company. It is the rise of a founder who understood that modern consumption is no longer just about function. People buy stories. They buy identity. They buy community. They buy emotional meaning. They buy symbols that say something about who they are. Once you see that clearly, the world looks different. Then you realize that something as small as a figurine can carry the emotional power that older generations once associated only with fashion, music, or luxury brands. And if you build the right system around that emotional power, the market can become enormous. That is what Wang Ning saw. There is also something deeply human in this story. Because underneath the revenue numbers and the billionaire rankings, what Wang Ning really built was a bridge between adulthood and play. That matters more than people admit. Modern life is stressful, uncertain, competitive, exhausting. People are not always buying collectibles because they are childish. Sometimes they are buying them because they are searching for delight, for comfort, for beauty, for a small pocket of emotional control inside a chaotic world. Founders who understand that are not just selling products. They are selling relief. And there is real value in that. For anyone watching on Billionaire Success Lessons, Wang Ning's story carries a message that goes far beyond Mart. It says you do not always have to build in a serious industry to build a serious life. You do not need the approval of traditional people to create modern value. You do not need your business to look impressive to everyone at the beginning. You need it to connect deeply with the people who matter most. That is enough to start. And if you build with enough clarity, enough patience, and enough systems, that connection can become an empire. Wang Ning's life also teaches that the power of staying close to a new consumer truth before everyone else accepts it. He bet on emotional consumption, on collecting, on character-driven demand, on youth culture, on surprise, on repeat purchase behavior, on intellectual property. At first, that might have looked neat, but niche repeated by millions becomes massive. That is another lesson builders should never forget. Small behaviors multiplied at scale create giant businesses. That is true in technology. It is true in retail. And it is absolutely true in Mart's story. So when you think about Wang Ning, do you not think only about Labubu blind boxes or billionaire rankings, growing up around ordinary trade? Think about the founder opening a store in Beijing in 2010 before the world cared. Think about the willingness to bet on feeling, not just utility. Think about the discipline required to turn a clever retail idea into an intellectual property machine. Think about the pressure of taking a youth culture company public in 2020. Think about the challenge of proving it was not a fad. Think about the scale of what Mart became by 2024. With billions in revenue and a rapidly expanding global footprint. That is the story of Wang Ning. Not just a story of billions. A story of observation. A story of emotion. A story of patience. A story of brand building. A story of turning play into power. And a story of proving that sometimes the founders who change the world are the ones who understand joy more seriously than everyone else.